So anyway, my name is Georgia Court. I'm the proprietor here, and I think many of you know me and have been here before. And today we're going to have a wonderful reading with a group of wonderful poets and prose writers from Vanderbilt University. But before we get started, I want to let you know or remind you that Monday, tomorrow, are our two big events for Poetry Life. At 11 a.m. in the morning in this space will be Amy Nezukumatatil and Ross Gay, who will be talking about their prose work and their collaboration in prose work. They've been friends for many years. They are both well-published, well-recognized, top-selling writers. The same two people will be at Florida Studio Theater tomorrow night at 7 p.m. and they're going to be in conversation with Kate Alexander about their poetry specifically. And both of these events will involve audience discussion. So come, kind of thinking that you'll be able to talk with them, because this is not going to be your standard stand up at a podium and have some dry reading and then you go home. This is going to be a conversation, both of these events. Tickets are available for that at our website, sarasotobooks.com and /events, not at FST's ticket counter. Okay?
And also it will be very hard on the day of to sell you tickets, so make sure to get your tickets at least an hour before we begin.
Yeah. Okay.
How long is the 11 o'clock event?
It's an hour and a half.
Yeah, it'll be an hour and a half, correct, right. Probably about an hour of them talking and speaking and then chatting with the audience and then a signing afterwards, so.
And there's no signing at the theater, those are pre-signed books.
Okay, all right. I want to introduce the person who's actually going to be doing the introducing, and that's Rick Hillis. He's an award-winning poet and teacher whose work has appeared in Poetry, the Paris Review, The Nation, The New Republic, Missouri Review, and many other leading literary journals. He's the author of Brother Salvage, winner of the Agnes Lynch Starrett Poetry Prize, and he's the author of A Map of the Lost World, a finalist for the Ohioana Book Award. Rick is a former Stegner Fellow in Poetry at Stanford University and has received numerous honors and fellowships in support of his work, and he is now a professor of literature and creative writing at Vanderbilt University, where he teaches undergraduate and graduate courses in poetry and writing, and he happened to bring along 5 of his MFA students. Just put them all in a plane and fly. So thank you, Rick, and thanks to Vanderbilt for doing that, by the way. Okay, I'll turn it over to you, Rick.
Thank you.
Yeah, right.
It's lovely to be able to thank my poetry mom, Georgia Court. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for coming on a rainy day to hear poetry. The size of the audience never is as important as the openness of those who do come in. Thank you so much for coming in. A spirit of openness and kindness. And what can I tell you? One of the great joys of my life has been to be a part of Vanderbilt's MFA program. I can't even tell you how many years we've had the MFA, although I've been teaching at Vanderbilt somehow for 20 years this year. They hired me when I was 9. Crazy. But frankly, I'm looking at these 5 incredible human beings who, in a time when I find it very challenging, to sometimes muster hope, I have time with these lovely people and I feel so much more hope. And I think you will too. This is very exciting. I'm excited for you as much as I am for myself. They're not necessarily aware yet of how we're doing this. So what I've done to make this as easy as humanly possible is I have all of their bios, sort of like cheat sheets, right? So I'm going to read the bio of the first reader, and I think she'll know because of her last name. that she's going to go first. I'm gonna do. And then it'll be very clear. Yeah, Aisha, Danielle, Alex, Noah, and Lana. And if there's time for me, I'll get to you too. I think if you don't mind, it'll be lovely. So, without further ado, I keep looking to see if someone else is coming. But you're already here. That's the best. So our first reader, Aisha Assad, is the author of the chapbook Waveborn by Bottle Cap Press that came out in 2022. Her poetry has been included in the 2020 Best of the Net anthology, and her work appears or is forthcoming in Agni, Boulevard, Mid-American Review, Tupelo Quarterly, Pank, Berkeley Journal of Gender, Law and Justice, and elsewhere. Her writing has been recognized by awards from UC Berkeley and UT Davis. She's currently taking an academic leave from UC Berkeley Law School to pursue an MFA in poetry at Vanderbilt University. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. In her free time, she says, she likes to dream. Please join me in welcoming Aisha Assad.
Thank you so much. This is actually kind of funny because we played like a little nose ghost game about who would go first, and I was last. And then Alex very kindly was like, I want to make you go first. But then it turns out I am actually going first. But it's okay. It means that I feel like the adrenaline, like I'll just kind of get it over with. Yeah. But I have a few poems that I would like to read for you all. And the first one is a ghazal. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with that form, but it's in couplets and there's a repeated refrain, a repeated like word at the end of each couplet. And I've been thinking a lot about like living with uncertainty and just what it means to be in an uncertain world. And I wrote this. Imperfect ghazal on weightless living. My father's hands flapped in a spiral of smoke, a weak light. What did I dream then? A child drenched in image. Sleek light, falling honeyed rivers, purpled fruit. What did I need to imagine my body, calm in migration? I wanted to seek light. Dawn sank into my hands like rain. I wanted to evaporate and ask God to reveal my face. I wanted to speak light and watch the earth settle into being. Each splash of wilderness unraveled into clean, solid lines. From there I would leak light. From there I would take flight, my body sloped and willing in an arena of disorder. But in the dark beak of night, that light still shivered, the world with its oblique tilt. Every day I arrived and arrive, my physique light, my mouth lustrous with song. With prayer I swill inward, those weeks I lie rooted. Flood my cheek, light, traveling into all skin. I am learning to find pleasure in uncertainty. Teach me your technique, light. Wait for it to come to you, I heard once in a car. Oh, radiant precarity, I am ready. Give me your mystique, light. Untouched by flame, my father now shakes his hair that suddenly grows to its full, shiny length, an antique light. Thank you for the applause. This next one is called Dream of an Ancestor, and it's about, I think my great-great-great-great-grandfather, one of the greats, and this takes place in 1857. Basically, what happened to him is that he was kind of, he was in India because this was before the partition and before my family migrated to Pakistan. And he was involved in a siege where he was trying to like start a rebellion against the British to basically, I guess, free India from colonialism. And that siege failed, and then like all the perpetrators and their families were hanged. But he managed to smuggle his 2 sons out. And he gave them at first to a Hindu family friend, and then the Hindu family friend gave them to a Muslim friend. And so one of those boys is my ancestor, and so I wrote this poem just like kind of thinking about what it might be like. Dream of an Ancestor. Simla, 1857. Did you look back, Ghulam, when your father disappeared into mountain? Morning rushed in, and his shell lay coiled in rope. The quiet burning, houses raised, your tiny body slipped into the hands of Hindu family friends. The red sandstone arch winking out behind you. Look how your brother keens, the chime ghosting over each sunrise, his hands sweep in prayer. This next one is called Won't Somebody Think of the Children, and I wrote it at like a time of campus unrest due to like different speakers coming in and out, and I'll just let it speak for itself. Won't somebody think of the children? The chancellor called him a speaker, and so did he, stripping down its bark. An olive tree felled, roots spiraling into thick air. Oh, what does it mean when you call kindergartens terror camps? Cramped with brown children, language rewriting their bodies. No Netflix, only war, or boats. They call us those people. How careless language is. I mean, careful. I sleep while it simmers. Speech that slinks into American skin like larvae threading through an apple, that sways on a tightrope over a gulf of slaughter. Every evening the news shudders out something new. Old. A baby's empty knees dipped in water, the curve of his shoe splayed upon sand like a slender wing. White people watch their own babies to understand. What language we speak, you and I spitting out parachutes that brush together like rain on a window. And somehow, news anchors reinvent civilization. Cut to an idyllic sky, to blue eyes. Each word is a moth painted on. Civilization is blonde hair and Instagram accounts. Cars that look like ours. The middle-class family next door. Children of God clustered around a white pasture. Its trees burnt into pale strips. A nation untouched by war, except when its military marches out. Later, soldiers ring out their words above a billowing white puddle, a cloud of bodies, sleepless in dust. They pick out rifle rounds from a shower of wet ground. Then the cameras crawling with their slow gleam. This next one is called Smoke Alarm, and it's about, I wrote it like a few summers ago, and our elm tree in front of my parents' house was basically like covered with beetles, and it was like rotting, and I just like one day I just kind of looked at it, and I saw like my dad had cut down a bunch of the branches, and I didn't even realize, and I wrote this poem. Smoke Alarm. I waited till summer for life to flow into me, for fire to be scrubbed out under my feet, flame licking the sponge that soaked it up. For when the tree burst into its own being, a crowned infant head paper white, and color rushed into its cheeks, green like the sea swelling against hot sand, I saw a thing of beauty, of honey dripping down its bark, a river to be drunk. I'm sorry, Mother, for taking out the thing that was holy and replacing it with impatience, for ignoring the beetles that formed waves on our elm tree, snaking down like a patchwork army, and I took that thought from your memory, arranged it into a line like a thief who harvests moments. Forgive me for my theft, but I use it for love, or feeling, or something that retains its image in a body, like the kiss of a flower stenciled between two pages, or a sun that swims inside of me, soaking in warmth. Just like I take an image that was never mine, grass, seafoam, cherry, and write with it anyway. Even my body does not belong to me, but I whisper in it and think in it and hope it stays beautiful. God, the way summer is made, thawed into golden branches and red magnolias and sand dunes, the way the clouds spin lazily on their orbit, the way the sun breathes onto the trees that have already bloomed, gift me that. Hold my bloom and that of others too. I ask only for forgiveness, sweet self-loving thing I am, and patience. This one I wrote kind of recently, or last summer, and I went to Redding, California, which is kind of like a small town, And it's also, there's a lot of like nature there that's very pretty, and me and my friend went and camped there, and I wrote this poem inspired by it. Flashpoint, Redding, California. I felt it speak, head tilted into a dark flower, our night pouring in. In the shimmer of its smooth neck, I caught that dislocated jolt, naked under pounding headlights. That tiny white town with the road splitting the mountain, rifles plastered on every other t-shirt. When we slept, flies writhed against mesh, turning their bodies toward the thing closest to lamplight. Was that what drew it out? A flash slowly sinking past the trees, a night diluted with something new? Then blinding brilliance, a white so stark the dusk turned over. How light can mean a shift in wind, a body crumpled seconds after. In the bright glow of morning, the world would surge into place. Which crosshair had we relived? I've never felt more non-white than in this town. And as we sat shivering, the doe arched, leaped delicately into blackness. This is the last one, and I feel like it's very fitting as the last poem to me, because I've been thinking about, like, I guess, togetherness and unity, and the fact that so many of us have such different experiences, but we're all in the same world and we're all living together, and I think there's like a beauty to us, existing in the same world and just like creating this space for each other. The Forester. And the earth limps once again. Where you stand, can you see the same timberline? The edge of the trees, unmown, forest black, slick with rain, and the gulls that hang above like planets. And then, dimly, the streetlights that swim above our alley. Do you step out of your porch light to look at them? The ones that flicker and leave behind a trace of lightweight radiance that rouse me from midnight sleep into their fairy tale, as if to say, come, let me speak this time. And let me speak. I have slept on the same soil that you plant your fingers into, hoping they take root. The green you wait for, tall-stemmed, honeycombed, mosaicked into what you call family, spills over mine. And my hand has dripped into your beehive. Come, let us walk. Let us speak before the sun never rises, before the ocean forgets to jewel, before the suburb splits like cracked ceramic. We have been waiting for the same thing. Okay. I will now introduce the next writer, fiction writer, but also an occasional poet. Okay, Danielle Shandine Emerson is a Diné writer from Shiprock, New Mexico, on the Navajo Nation. She has a BA in Education Studies and a BA in Literary Arts from Brown University. Her writing centers healing, kinship, language learning, and Diné narratives. She is an MFA fiction graduate at Vanderbilt University. Her father used to read her car manuals to make up for their house's lack of children's books. Her mother did her best within their turbulent household, and her siblings continue to inspire Danielle every day to keep going.
For the introduction, I'm gonna set a timer on my phone because we can get really lost in prose sometimes. Let me just do stop watch. There we go. The piece I'm going to be reading is an excerpt from a short story called Shi'eh, a body of water, and Shi'eh translates directly to mostly I am. When I was a baby, Shema also means like mother, and Shema Sana is like grandmother. When I was a baby, Shema took me into her bony hands, thinned with cold, the gloves of old age, and rolled me in the snow. I guess another thing I should mention is we have this tradition called the snow bath, where when the first snow falls, we take like a snow bath generally where we rub the snow on our bodies so we can have this like skin of protection of resilience and good thought. Okay. My echoes wailed across an empty front yard, a white spread blanket and perhaps angel's wings. She took her time rubbing fresh snow into my small arms and shoulders, moving down my body, now glistening against the backdrop of our gray driveway. Frozen lotion is what she used to call it. It's good for the bones and body. She'd swipe at her nose, sniffling, take it up. The snow brought an unforgettable numbness, and even as I thrashed, twisting like a wet rag, heavy with nothing but water weight, Shema's hands never wavered. They held an old confidence, the kind that existed long before air filled my lungs. Her dark hands decorated sky blue with turquoise jewelry and busted calluses. Hands with long fingers, cradling warm limbs, firm like rounded icicles. The cold kiss of morning dew against my back, no doubt a stark contrast to the warmth of Shema's uterus. But even then, I wondered if I had really known warmth, if I had felt it, caught in a summer monsoon, listening to heavy rain from the porch, while Shema turned over mud with dangling feet. If I had felt it while floating in lukewarm ditch water before they all ran dry and the chapter house issued a state of emergency. Drought holo. It exists. At least until the first thunder, where water returned to a dead ocean. The whole Southwest an ocean, Shema used to say. Perhaps warmth is the comforting feeling of being enveloped, surrounded, and submerged. From the door Shema's son I watched on, the wrinkles in her face like plowed snow. She leaned against the wooden frame, her back a straight axe handle tucked between shoulder blades, the kind of trustworthy axe we all handled for chopping. My mother says that before joining, Shema's son recited a prayer, one she had been taught before the animals stopped talking. Calling upon good thoughts and good energy. That's the only way to translate it in English. Shema-sana conjured a blessing. Then she'd click her old-timey tongue and roll up her velvet sleeves. With still hands, she'd spread snow across her forearms before bringing her palms back together towards her face. It was mesmerizing. She cupped her hands, not patting, but smudging with the flat of her palm, intentions that rivaled my own newborn tenacity, where I wailed to eat and sleep and receive love from Shema. We weren't tradish enough to do it naked, not like other Navajos deeper on the res, where you could throw a rock and kick up dirt and hit nothing but more dirt and even more rocks. I had clothes on, an oversized toddler's tee, which drooped, leaving part of my chest exposed. It was a gift from my father, cheap merch from some garage band he used to head in high school. Corn in the glove compartment is what it was called. They sang a meld of Johnny Cash and Metallica rock covers. I remember his old CDs, a collection of clear, cracked plastic cases piled on top of each other in the glove compartment. I remember sitting in the passenger seat, listening as none other than Johnny Cash sang about his empire of dirt. Despite wearing my own headphones, channeling music from a used MP3 player, stolen because often older kids got too comfortable with the supposed authority of age, I could still hear I fell into a burning ring of fire, and then we were off to Never Never Land. Loud music, full of yelling and guts, becoming pure vibration. I turned my head towards the window in an attempt to ignore bombing drums, but then noticed how the whole southwest exterior seemed to be shaking, vibrating like one of those gas station snow globes, the kind that tourists brought back to East Coast families, bragging out of their ass about visiting Santa Fe, New Mexico, out of all places. My dad had a peeling silver Ford truck, the same banged up Ford he got my mother pregnant in, because back then front seats were just one long couch without dividers or armrests, easy for laying a girl without a curfew or a father on her back till she's knocked up. One that ran on double the gas, but by some miracle of res mechanics managed to go double the speed, cutting off old folks in minivans along back roads. A perfect end of date, then later end of marriage getaway car. Shema managed to tie Shuja'eh, which translates to father, down with a fake diamond ring and an even faker promise of cheap Bud Light alcohol and a packet of rest stop smokes. He got that shirt at the Shiprock flea market. It made him laugh. Shema says he pointed it out with his lips, a tiny Metallica tee, the perfect size for a baby. Shema didn't like it, but she knew the only time could lessen my father's temper. Dealing with alcoholism had whittled down my mother's strong reserve, the one that all Navajo kids managed to weld together with fury and heat under the strict stovetop childhood of Navajo grandparents. She could only nod and dig through her purse for the $30. For nearly 10 years, Shema made all her decisions with nobody but Shuja'eh in mind. She eventually divorced him a couple of months before she went missing. As a toddler, the snow bath became a game. I got to nosedive into fresh snow and roll around like a pup in dirt or a pig in mud, Shimasana used to cackle from the porch. My cousins were eager to join. We screamed and yelped and threw bundles of snow at each other, aiming for the uncovered parts of our bodies where skin turned slick and magenta with frost. Over time, the cold made our hands bright red, mixing with sepia skin, extenuating bunches of blue and purple veins. We lost feeling in our fingertips, gripping snow in our palms, and gradually the temptation to pinch them till they bled became too much. Against white, drops of stark red reminded us of strawberry pulp, jam spread against day old flour tortillas. Our clothes got soaked, shifting from damp to stiff Velcro lining leaf limbs. It took Shimasana yelling from the house, "Yada la, get inside, you're not supposed to do it like that," to snap us out of our glacial daze. And we'd straighten our backs, recognizing the near panic-inducing sensation of what we could only describe which can only be described to toddlers as unfeeling, carving out our field melon insides and making a home in our ice chest cavity. Somehow we managed to lower our body temp to below freezing. Our feet resembled the feeling of bare stumps without toes or heels or bones. Everything was numb, and it almost hurt to sit next to the fireplace as we defrosted. We stripped down, socks, gloves, pants, and knitted hats hung to dry on the cast iron door, and my damp head on my cousin's shoulder, whose head was on another cousin's shoulder, and so on and so forth. I thought about how, while we didn't get naked for our snow bath, we'd undressed to sit around the fireplace, bare chest down to our skivvies. I wanted to explore how close I got to freezing to death. Strangely, being cold felt a lot like being underwater, like drowning in heat, or at least Shimasana's fireplace, like raking the surface, lungs aching, wrangling for a fresh gulp of air. In my mind, snow baths took on the implication of swimming, diving, the uncomfortable yet elusive moment of serenity before suffocating, before swallowing water. Think good thoughts, blessings, is what Shimasana Doshima would say. How do I tell them that from a young age I wanted to return like snow, like ice and rain, to a pure body of water? 2 more minutes here. In the glass pane of the stove, I watched my mother's reflection. Her face held a cool expression as she looked out the window, jaws loose and eyes flat. I imagined she was thinking of her first snow bath, where she also ran with younger cousins, treating blessings like a series of childhood games, something to toss up into the air and watch sprinkle down. My mother didn't talk of her childhood, not unless she was asked specific questions, and even then the entire process resembled the violent study of detention, pulling teeth, bloody, clinical, and sharp. The fire sent shadows snaking between her eyes and nose, turning down-turned lips into something a little more grotesque. She stood cross-armed, leaning against the screen door, hair tied back into a messy bun that framed her fit round face. The only light came from the fireplace, mixed with white from the moon and sheaths. If I blinked, the fire's movement flickering, almost threatening to jump from the stove and onto our toes and maybe dance, petite feet along our cheekbones, encouraging me to close my eyes. In between crackles and pops, I nodded off. It was then that I swear I saw my mother's mouth snap up, hiding fangs, thick canines that matched the freshly fallen snow. What makes a mother horrific, I thought then, as an elementary schooler, but a father whose addiction turned him monstrous? Maybe my mother had something similar, something passed on from long-fanged parents and grandparents and elders, all caught in a storm of violence that multiplied and garnered fur along sun-touched skin. Maybe it wasn't their fault. During clear skies, my mother sat inside, reading through the local paper, circling obituaries of people she recognized. Shimasana sipped coffee from the front porch, wrapped in a thick blanket, watching the sun cross over farmland. We never did our snow baths together. I assume she did them in the early morning when dawn stuffed the night sky back beneath the surface, spreading its palm, then arms and shoulders across the high-ranging bluffs until sunlight poured through the windows like sandy wash water. As a child, I always awoke last, rolling from the hogan floor. I watched Shima, wide eyes peeking out from my blankets. In the winter, the stove was never bare. Shema do Shema Sana took turns feeding the fire and removing the dead coals. The scraping of warm metal against metal usually woke me. On the rare occasion my mother took her snow bath, I noticed that she preferred to lay in the snow as it fell, making languid snow angels with sore arms, letting snowflakes drop like chenille on her eyelashes. From the screen door I watched as she spent hours in the snow, lying on the ground till it stopped falling. In the meantime, my grandmother prepared breakfast, frying potatoes and spam. I'd help her make bread, spreading the dough with my fingers, growing frustrated with how it ripped and stuck uncomfortably to my skin. Boots stomping on the porch drew my attention away from the bread making. Pieces of dough forgotten, I rushed to the front door, raising my hands, asking without asking to be carried. My mother returned nearly ice solid, but never once did she complain about the cold. She'd kiss my forehead, chilly lips against stovetop warm skin, and take a seat next to the fireplace. I wondered if her fingers and toes were numb, if she was in pain like I usually was after playing in the snow for a long time. It seemed like she was outside for hours. After the kiss, I reached up with one hand to touch the spot, expecting a phantom cold so cutting and precise it sent shivers like snakes up and down my body. But my forehead was warm, burning even. I walked up to her side and raised my arms again. She smiled at me before pulling me up onto her lap. I looked at her then, expecting a monster or maybe a grand being, but instead I simply saw my mother with closed eyes and a soft smile. Her clothes were cold, melted snow made some parts wet, but her chest, her arms, and her breath all felt impossibly warm. I didn't know what it was like to be a mother, what it was like to lose a husband and raise a child. Maybe it changed deeper parts of you, I thought, peeking up at my mother's slim neck, for better or worse. Yeah, and now I will introduce Alexandra Green, first-year poet. Alexandra Green grew up in rural Maryland. She graduated with her Master's of Divinity from Yale Divinity School in 2023, where she was the managing editor of the journal Letters. She has worked as a youth minister, nonprofit director, and arts advocate. Her writing is primarily interested in the endless vital ramifications of language, of the political, of nature, and of faith. She is often drawn along by song.
Thank you, Danielle. A couple of things before I get started. Thank you so much, Georgia, for your hospitality all weekend long. Georgia makes an incredible vegetarian chili. If you all have not had the opportunity to eat it, highly encourage it. And she has been
right amount of spice.
Just the right amount of spice. She has been so gracious to us this weekend, and this has been a blast. Also, one of the delights of reading with your cohort is that I haven't been able to hear much of our fiction cohort's work because we're in different classes. And it is such a gift to be able to hear Noah and Daniel's work. Danielle, thank you so much for that story. That was lovely. And Aisha, it's always a pleasure to hear from you. Before I get started, just a couple of things about how I put together the poems for the reading this morning. In the Christian liturgical calendar, it's the season of Lent. Lent is one of my favorite seasons, actually. And this year, it happens to overlap with Ramadan, which is really exciting for Aisha and I. And something that both of these seasons have in common is an emphasis on the importance of waiting, and waiting as like a practice and a discipline. And it makes me think a lot of the poet May Bersenbrugge's collection, Hello the Roses, where she has this line that she says, waiting is a force. And so when I was putting my little series of poems together this morning, I was just like, what is the arc of my waiting? Or what have been some of the arcs of my waiting? And so this little sequence hopefully will walk us from Lent's meditation on our briefness and our brevity as humans to the hope of infinity and that everything is. Okay, this first poem I wrote when I first moved to New England for my divinity degree. It's called I Was Small and Lost and Overwhelmed. And this poem is called First Winter in New England. Each morning, shocked through with world, ensconced within the gray-white rind of winter, pale-faced, both eyes sunk in socket bones, wind-whittled, icicled to the front stoop of another new home, a rigid driptych, all petrified melt. stung alive by the bleak shriek and cold voltage of close to coastal winds. Exhale hot air and microscopic droplets, each particulate dissipating, displaced, disappearance, hold up, for weeks now, holding out for heat to peel back this layer of numbed non-becoming, waiting out the winter, its withering, this waste, waiting for the kept pace of time's slight, adamant hands to tick you into place. This next poem, I will let speak for itself, except I had a good friend read this poem once, and their only note on it was, I was surprised by how much laughter is in this poem, which made me happy. It's called Leaving Home Without Your Umbrella. Dazed in the deluge, on the street to which I slipped out, in a guttural going away. What was the watershed moment? If concrete could cave to countryside, I'd be 14 and dressed again in sweats, scooping water out the cellar steps, crouched in a torrent with my siblings. We heaved with laughter. We heaved buckets full of rain away from the door, our cold hands calcifying into clutches, wrapped around the rims, stuck with hanging on. It was the usual effort, making the damage manageable. Dad bent down with us, wearing his anger out in plain sight, sending bucketful after bucketful up the concrete stairs. After working to stop the worst of it, we took off running, always already shivering, wringing wet, loving the way the water felt once it fell all over us, blurring the boundary between pour and downpour. At the bottom of the lawn I stand, ankle deep, sinking at the edge of the see-through pools collecting over clover, watching the grass wave in rainwater, those labored, elastic movements, the silent survival of things submerged. One way to think about people is to think about this sort of like dominant mode of engagement they have with you, and some of the like more negative side effects of that. But another way is to think of those like astonishing moments of tenderness that seem to rupture through even the most aloof of people's behavior. And this next poem for me, just emerged out of being overwhelmed one day with like, wow, I grew up with like so much tenderness. And so many people have so much tenderness just in ways that maybe we aren't capable of giving them the most credit for all the time. So this next one is called School Nights. He watched too. He chronicled observations in those wisecrack noticings, keen-eyed curios collected in the museum of his humor. Predictable pains transpired. There were nights when you or another of the children came home misshapen by some shame, a phrase that rang in the adolescent way of things with contempt inexplicable. These evenings, nicknames he gave like knickknacks to the house of your growing self seemed to slide right off the shelf of you, and you'd drift room to room, distant within that snapshot orb of introspection, until dinner, when you'd sit in stuck-tongue silence at the table, a flyweight, suddenly burdened with sensations of the great loneliness, the world at once a quagmire whirl of won't be known, where all is engarbled and the necessary words, if spoken, are half heard. He'd snatch up the truck keys in that wind-beat, cracked to bleeding grip of his fist, and 1-2 tap your back so you'd know to go with him. It was fall. It was unbracingly brisk. It was the season of reaching for heat. 12 years old, you stood in the truck bed, the short plank of your body, with its neck down, corked bottle tightness, leaned against the Chevy's gray indented lift, watching the water sputter and spit out the mouth of the hose, plunking into a tin tub, only God remembers why, while he, planted to the ground and still as tall as you, held the snake of that spigot, one elbow propped on top the lift gate. Bad day? And your difficult nod, his already knowing. And then the water, once frozen, once struggling to surge, streaming out. A pool before you in which you see the wrinkling reflection of star spark, beads of light made to congregate like tadpoles, like the slightest of lives, wriggling through the shut eye of night. Back on the ground now, in the front seat again, just in time for bed. Ah, that one makes me a little emotional. A little weepy on you all. Oh my gosh. This next poem is a form that I kind of played with and I call a stacked triptych. There's 6 different ways of reading it because of the way it's written. I'm not going to do that to you all. I'm going to read one. Thank you for laughing, Shirley. I also think that's funny. There's 3 words in it that I'm just going to let you all know what they mean beforehand. There's the Hebrew word rakia, which is the word used in the story of Genesis for heaven. There's the word mayim, which is the Genesis word for the waters. And then there's one more word, and it's badal. And it is the verb that means to create or to separate out of. So God separates or badals the rakia from the mayim. Make sense? Okay. This is called the expanse of it. Begin with an image for love. Let it be rakia. Heaven bending over us, a vault, one translation calls it. A built structure, an arch. In childhood, we imagined a contraption to hold safe the cherished. Mother, father, brothers, sisters, unharming and unharmed. Held perpetual in returning light. Becoming again like little children. Being kept in hymn song, each to each belonging. And what we said was graced. Grateful for the being there. Intercessions for life breath, its exaltations, we thought it all rakia, but we knew to set apart. Mayim, mayim. Waters beneath, though it was heaven overhead. Mayim, already mayhem. In volatile tumult, a whirl down deep. Here below, a past tense obscured. No way to ascertain the then, which is a rippling absence mixed in. How to account for it? The chaos of before time. A forsaken rage. How to be saved from? The preoccupation of adolescence. Believing no more. Racked by the thought of trusting no more. Death which was the gone in things, or being no more. In this account, creation as badal. Made is to be out of, is to be a matter dividing, or to be utterly severed from. This is a fun one, or fun to read at least. It's called Hymn in the Plosive G. The plosive G is formed, it's the G sound. It is formed by siphoning off airflow. So every time you say that G, it's like a little bit of I can't breathe. Hymn in the plosive G. God of the ground, the grass, the goldenrod, the garden, good God. Of the orchids growing, the organ's growth. Our Armageddon God of the gone wrong, grace glinting in the grit-teeth grief that greets each grim prognosis, another doomsday, downed without so much as a gulp. God grotesque, gratuitous, garish in my gaze, giver with the good sense to grab back, that galactic grip with which we grapple, whose grasp gave Jacob Jacob's jagged gait. The grave guiding groove in our glyptic souls gouged out, glittering, governing gorge. The giggle and the gurgle of the baby after birth, a guttural God, undergirding all our interrogatives. Soft sung, lung flung, gasped ghost of a God. The glow and the gall at the close of all, God in my grin, God in my groan. All right, now we're through Lent and we're at Easter, emotionally speaking. So hopefully you all are hanging in there still and we can end on like a high note, you know what I mean? I love sibling relationships. I love siblings. I think siblings teach you so much about the world and about loving people. And this next poem is just because I love my siblings. And one of the memories I think of when I think of how bright and magical siblings are. It's called How It Was in the Red Berry Season. Once, the oldest two, no more than 13, 15, came clumping up the porch, forelegs sleeved in mud and dripping muck, swathed in the squishing filth of dark earth like an Adam and an Eve, squelching forth in the middle of their being made. They teetered on the first step, creatures of clay not quite finished, children who'd slipped and slid back into the grasp of that puddle, a pond. Down they'd gone among the farm fowl floating on the surface, flapping waist-high in the mire, becoming birds themselves. The strongest, with the beak of his hand, had wrenched the other free until they both lay heaped in grass, giggling globs that slunk the whole mile home, two lazari in miniature, delirious at the rising up, stumbling past the hillsides ribboned with strawberry runners. On the stoop they stood, flowering cattails, the long-stemmed reeds of their bodies propped by both hands palm down on the frame as Mom hollered to not touch anything, and fast-balled hole-riddled rags through the doorway, laughter crackling through the gathering crease of her brows, and her spine's straight-lined, ramrod strength caved into the hunched-up shape of her joy, which was the shape of our joy, which rattled us. She lobbed towels at their soaked-through sodden forms, winking and dazzling beneath rays that, while scorching at times, now danced along their blade-flecked backs. They remained there, writhing, wiping clean, caught up in the sun's bright besotment, all but begun. And a little one to end on. After deciding what you will not do with your life. Above, a mourning dove, doused in the downlight of dawn, perched, paused, on the pitch of slate the shingled roof, a clutch of feathers, no more than a handbreadth of bone. Breathing through the halcyon of early hour happenings, the blue jay's whistles and jeers, the long-nailed click-click of the small curly dog's paws as he trots down the street, the two owl sounds, their low, high calls conducted between treetops. Praise for daybreak, praise for the night drawn back, praise for no, for the road removed. Praise for the rest that arrives after run, for front porches, their steps that stay in place. Praise at last these days that are, and praise the days that aren't. I love that. Thank you all so much for listening. So wonderful. I have the pleasure of introducing Noah Greenspan, a fiction writer from Southeastern Virginia and a first-year fiction MFA student at Vanderbilt University. She is currently working on a collection of short stories about coming of age and our relationships to place in the first part of the 21st century. Before Vanderbilt, Noah studied English, creative writing, and environmental studies at Princeton University, and worked at the Southern Environmental Law Center.
Thank you so much, Alex, and thank you so much to Georgia and to Rick for bringing us here. This has been so wonderful, and really appreciate you all coming today. Okay, I'm gonna read sort of the first third of a short story called Tree of Heaven. Is the microphone too close, or is it good? No, it's fine?
A little closer.
Little closer,
Yeah.
like this?
Yeah.
Okay, you can never really tell. Okay. All right. Tree of Heaven. Jonah's kid wasn't supposed to come back until 8. They were lying on his couch, not moving much. The weekend had come together, Louisa thought, like a miracle. Jonah's wife at her parents' in Minnesota, his son at a friend's. But by Sunday afternoon, she only felt a heavy stasis, as if caught in the moment before falling asleep. They had barely gone outside all day, and the world seemed shrunken to Jonah's rooms and photographs and books. Louisa felt too tired to watch the show playing quietly on the television, too tired to switch on the light. His house was dark as twilight. The doorknob twisted. "It's raining," hollered Dylan, knocking hard. Louisa could hear the voices of a couple boys behind him, skateboard wheels smacking pavement. "Let us in." "You can wait a minute," called Jonah. He kissed Louisa on the cheek, said, "You gotta go." I wasn't gonna ask him to watch TV with us. She meant to make a joke, but there was a childish, jealous sharpness to the words. Jonah flipped the lights, revealing the t-shirts and underwear and hairbrush she'd spread across his place. Last night he had called it endearing, how quickly she could turn a clean room messy. Now she felt idiotic, swiping under his couch for a sock, her hand coming out with the grime and dust too. She left through the side door as the boys came in. The rain and the creosote, the dark shape of the mountains, the smell of rotting apricots on the ground all felt harsh and disorienting, like stumbling from a movie theater into the bright afternoon. She saw him around all the time, the kid. There he was at the skate park, practicing an ollie, striding down Main Street with a girl, lounging in coffee shops, shooting hoops at the public park. There he was with his buddies, gasping as they made themselves puke on the side of the road for some version of fun. Since she had met the boy, Dylan was, seemingly, everywhere. Louisa thought Silver City had a funny way of flipping the roles of kids and adults, or at least blurring them. On the outskirts, it was a diverse working town, home to copper miners and ranchers, Mexican families, a handful of Chinese folks who had arrived during the railroad days. But the downtown core was all hippie, desert flower, semi-retired, find-yourself types. For them, Silver seemed to function like a permanent summer camp, with a constant stream of activities co-opted from near and far: writing workshops, qigong, communal sweats in the Gila wilderness, book club, recovery group, yoga. While the adults kept busy, their kids found freedom. There was a little girl named Juniper, a miniature of her tall mother with a matching dark bob and bangs. Louisa had seen the child buying groceries, putting up ads for her dog walking business, and once sitting apparently alone at the Toad Tavern, a water-filled mug clamped between her small, thick hands. Maybe the mom was in the bathroom. Louisa liked most of the kids in Silver, but just a glimpse of Dylan unsettled her. He and his friends made this nasty face at people passing by, crossing their eyes and sucking down their upper lips so only their bottom teeth showed. He'd done it to her once in the university parking lot after an information session. Only after getting into her car had she seen him in her left side mirror with the frozen grin. Louisa's parents farmed in Hillsborough, but she had moved to Silver at 17 to save up for school. She worked at a coffee shop called Javelina, a pun on the aggressive little desert hogs that ran around here and sometimes mauled people. In a year and a half, she had snagged a managerial title and a little raise. Now people greeted her by name, came up to her with gossip or complaints over work. Silver made you feel known, spoken of, entangled sort of quick. She received last-minute invites to house parties, backyard barbecues. She drifted easily among groups of people at the Toad. Still, Louisa didn't know if she could call anyone here a close friend. Jonah began showing up at the coffee shop in the spring of Louisa's second year in Silver, working on his laptop. He was pretty, with longish, silver blonde hair. Two women asked Louisa who the stranger was. She shrugged, but she was watching and wondering too. He came up to the counter one morning with a tourist brochure the shop kept up front. "Stay for a day," he read, "a week, or," and here his voice turned low and ominous, "a lifetime." New Mexico tourist stuff is creepy like that, laughed Louisa. There's a big sign outside the Truth or Consequences rest stop. "We've been waiting for you." "I hope I didn't keep you," he said. Jonah ordered tea, told her he was here for a nonprofit job in food systems. He wanted to start a hub for local farmers, get their produce to restaurants and schools in the area. "My parents have land 2 hours from here," she said. "Vegetables, chicken coops, that kind of thing." "You didn't want to farm?" "No way." Growing had never seemed all that romantic to her. Her dad, now in his mid-40s, was still paying off his student loans after studying in Cruces. She remembered vividly the time he won a grant to build a high-wind tunnel to grow tomatoes and cucumbers into the winter. When he defaulted on his loans, the IRS intercepted the tunnel's reimbursement, and then the wind knocked the damn tunnel down. Money was always a problem, and the lack of it wedged between her father and mother, causing blowout fights in leaner seasons. She told Jonah she aimed to study biology once she saved enough, then live in a city, probably Santa Fe. She said this with a confidence she didn't feel most of the time, as if her move north was a sure thing. "I don't miss the city," he said. "It's brave that you're doing all this on your own." They began to talk a little each time he came in. The first time Jonah mentioned his wife, Louisa was surprised, so she had misread the situation. Still, she listened as he told her about Minneapolis, his kid, what it was like to become a father when he had just turned 20. He talked about his in-laws, the father domineering, the mother obese and medicated. They were both obsessed with Orlando and brought him and his wife to Disney every Christmas, no excuses. That sounds awful, Louisa said, although in truth, she and her dad loved the coasters, and she had always pictured Disney World as little girls in New Mexico are supposed to, distant, magical. He introduced Dylan to her casually one morning when the two came in together. The boy stared at her the whole time he was drinking his coffee. Louisa smiled back. Maybe it had just been her own desperation that made her think Jonah wanted something more. But then, there were small things. Jonah would ask her to sit down at his table when there was no line. There were the offhand comments, the stories that seemed tinged with darkness. Some days she could convince herself that he was trying to reach out to her, that he needed her in some way his family couldn't quite understand. She found herself thinking about him on days when he didn't come in. One morning, Jonah ordered green tea after being gone 5 days in a row. Her head pounding with relief and the anxiety that he could leave again at any time, Louisa wrote her number on the receipt. The texts they sent back and forth were innocuous enough, mostly memes actually, probably ones Jonah got from Dylan and his 14-year-old boy sense of humor. They were friends. The summer stagnated. Everyone was waiting for rain. In the hot, dry, late June air, Louisa's lips cracked and burned. One afternoon, her friend Michelle came into the shop. "Oh my God," said Louisa, "oh my God." She ran out from behind the counter, the two girls colliding. They hadn't seen each other in a year. "I'm visiting the folks. Can I stay with you a couple days?" asked Michelle, holding her, grinning, already knowing the answer. They had grown up together in Hillsborough. Louisa used to spend weekends at her clean, spacious house, especially when her parents were fighting. Michelle's dad, who was in the state legislature, had been something of a local celebrity. A towering, expressive man, he always looked like he was about to cry when he spoke of the community's lack of broadband, or youth leaving the state, or traveling 40 miles to school when he was a boy. Whether it was sincerity or political strategy, Louisa could never quite decipher. That night, talking with Michelle, Louisa felt an incredible relief that someone was here in Silver who had known her as a child, someone she didn't have to explain herself to. They reminisced. They played Fuck, Marry, Kill with the boys from their high school. They talked about the young, sarcastic physics teacher they both had secret crushes on. After her shift the next afternoon, they walked downtown, Louisa pointing out her favorite art galleries, telling Michelle about the old Scottish guy who ran the bookstore. "I walked around town within 5 minutes this morning," said Michelle. "What do you do all day here?" "Work, mostly," said Louisa. "Do you remember that video of you after junior prom? We're all in the bathroom with you talking about how bad your date was." "I guess," said Michelle, her smile a thin, faint line. "Why?" "Just popped into my head. Such a funny night. You talk about the past so much." "Sorry. Tell me about college." Michelle had been one of 2 people from her high school to go out of state. "Well," said Michelle, pleased again. She sounded like a knowing older sister, though she was a few months younger than Louisa. "It was hard at first. Our high school didn't prepare us at all. But it got easier. I have the closest friends now in my sorority." Nobody wants to talk about hard stuff until it's already over, Louisa thought. They just want to talk about hard stuff as a counterpoint to a really good, really secure now. She felt annoyed at Michelle's obvious happiness and upset at her own annoyance. "I can't wait till you get started with your degree," Michelle said gently, pinching Louisa's arm. "You are always so smart." Louisa nodded, smiling. She felt like she was going to cry. "So," said Michelle, "are you seeing anyone?" "Sort of." Louisa hoped that she sounded mysterious instead of confused. "I'll let you know how it goes." Michelle wrapped an arm around her waist. "This town is really cute," she said. This town, as if Michelle hadn't grown up here too, driving to Silver City for fun some weekends. A few days after her friend left, the rain finally gave way. You could smell it before it came. People stood on the porches, feeling the wind on their skin, the tiny droplets blowing sideways. Louisa put her face up to her window screen. When it began to pour, she texted Jonah, "Go down to the big ditch. You'll see what I mean." It was where the founders of Silver City had erroneously put Main Street a billion years ago. Usually it was dry and dusty, but when it rained, muddy water rushed through it. A half hour later, he texted a picture of himself by the ditch, his hair soaked through. Makes me miss swimming, he said. Are you up for it one of these days? The red sedan arrived outside her apartment just past 9 in the morning. Louisa saw it from the window and felt her throat tense up with something close to excitement. Where are we going? She asked him in the car. In her bag was a bathing suit, a towel, her dad's sweatshirt. You'll see, said Jonah. He glanced over, laughed, said, we're going to the Gila. You're nervous. I'm not, she said. Louisa had the strangest sense of deja vu, tried to place the feeling. Silver City's downtown gave way to the main road out, the cutesy galleries replaced by Walmart, McDonald's, trucks. The country radio that Jonah had put on turned static, returned, turned static again, and then stopped. There would be no more service. Want to see something embarrassing, said Jonah. I don't know. She said it calmly. She didn't want to seem nervous. She wasn't nervous. Will it change my opinion of you? Jonah gave her a look, all fake regret. Go into the glove box. It was a CD case. Louisa zipped it open, pulling them out one at a time. Titles like Summer and Katie were scrawled in Sharpie on the plastic sleeves. You're looking at my mixtapes from high school, he said. You can pick one to play. Louisa laughed, and in the moment that she did, she realized where the deja vu had come from. She had felt this way once as a child, when a traveling carnival had come to Hillsborough. She and her dad were waiting for the big ride, this enormous flying machine that swung you around and around. She had insisted on it, but once she was sitting in the little metal seat, she became filled with dread. Her dad only lifted up the lap bar to show it was locked in place. You already made the decision, he said. Now you'll see it through. So this was the feeling, that whatever happened next would be inevitable, that she had already relinquished control without quite realizing. Okay, I'll stop there. Okay, I have the pleasure of introducing Lana Reeves. Lana is a poet and amateur spear fisherman from Oahu, Hawaii. Ask her about hers. Winner of the 49th Parallel Award in Poetry and finalist of the 2025 Iowa Review Award, her work can be found in Beloit Poetry Journal, Gulf Coast, Meridian, Prairie Schooner, Poetry Online, Southern Humanities Review, and the premier journal of women who write about their grandmothers. She received her BA from Harvard University with a dual degree from the Berklee College of Music, where she wrote songs with no lyrics or melody. Her debut collection is forthcoming in 2027 from Penguin Poets, Penguin Random House. She currently lives in Nashville, Tennessee.
Thank you, Bella. Thank you, Georgia. Thank you, Rick, for setting up this reading today. It's so much fun to get to read with my fiction friends. Yes, I'm from Hawaii, and that's really all you need to know. I'll jump right into my first poem. How to Love a Sinking Island. Forget dull facts of shovel, pail, hump, and sail. Instead, shed curl and skin scale like gecko in every sweat-rimmed linen. Leave traces knowing the body has already gone missing. Forget the necking up on Tantless Ridge. No more idling cars or privacy in groves that decompose to other kinds of shelter. Forget slick treasure trove of lychee you once lifted thanklessly to your lips. Forget their fullness and how they wanted you. Forget peel, pluck, snip, blanch, rip clean. These are privileges of the dry. Forget size. Forget all papers. They cannot be saved, that melt like petals on the water. Libraries of petals. Forget wistful diaries and albums or scribbles slipped into lockers, lockets, and drawers. Be friendly with the attic of your life. Whatever you've crammed up there out of sight, among the garden gnomes and musty moo-moos one day comes of use, like all forgotten roots. Disregard all sea-logged maps, hazard lights, dirt tracks. Forget your star signs and divinities, redemption like a bowl blessed by just a little salt. Praise low-lying clouds,
and walk lightly over dead things, strike matches into wind. All right, this next poem is a fun one. When I was in middle school, I sort of had like one of my first like sexual awakening experiences, going to see a women's volleyball game at the University of Hawaii. Because if you've ever seen volleyball players, powerful, powerful women. And the name of the team at the University of Hawaii is called the Rainbow Wahine, or Women in Hawaiian, so it's kind of a fitting name. Okay, volleyball girls. I lived for the half-second nosedive, toes pointed ballerina style from the nosebleeds, feet wet with spilled soda and sweaty palmed fifth set, and boy, she could palm my head and then some. Could swat a bird like a fly, could strike like cobra more deliberate, switch up midair, tear her other arm from behind, and send it spinning into new dimensions. And I, drop-jawed and burning for acrylic claws and power and the practice of rehearsing it, slicked back my baby hairs, unknotted my shoulders, meaning I got strong, meaning I grew solid in desire, which is not a net to be defended, but one that lets through, and who knew it meant years of lugging lead and buckling under the bar, my thighs hell-bent on surrender, but surrender takes rehearsal too, and hell doesn't everyone need a church or a theater or a sky-high vahine to make them small. Used to reading with a clipboard. It's actually a challenge. Okay. This next one I think is very fitting here in Sarasota. We've been lucky enough on Georgia's back porch to see quite a few lizards. We get a lot of them in Hawaii too. So this goes out to all the lizards, this poem. It's called Tales. I'm becoming more gecko by the day. By night, her grislier echo. Dismembered and disremembered and lustrous, muster ancestral instincts into a glitter-scaled dressing gown, my many discarded death garments. Ditch phantom limbs in ditches, pedaled and heavy-handed with hands. Mine runs its mouth and can't write about itself. I, despite myself, make house in a house not mine, night visitor, twitching in moonlight, medicinal and suture immune. Not a pest, no, something else. A glistening, half-dead guest tracking mud through the door. In the future, will tales be useful? In a flood, for instance, like fins, oars? Or are they untranslatable? I ask every one of my severed vestiges propagating bodies, each hacked stump springing hair in snakeskin spirals. So dark, that hair, my own, slimed and caught in jagged jaw, wearing my unbreakable face. Okay, I'm actually gonna, do you mind holding
Yes,
this?
I'm gonna flip this. There we go.
I'll make it easier. This is a two-pager. This is about going for a little pedicure pampering with my partner. It's called Getting Our Toes Done. 2 red clay hills, night spill, a thinnest black thread unspooled, hollows of dusk-drawn shadow I've sucked clean. These, your calves, kneaded in the poi-colored hands of a woman who might have been my mother, half submerged like strong, strewn logs in the hefty plastic tub laid with artificial roses. You looked unsure, you, hangnail perpetually lifted to my lip, part of myself attached precariously pink, before you dipped in each soul, as if the care might burn, as if this care were any different than submitting our feet to our own mothers and their not-so-tender trimmings that were tender in their trimming nevertheless. But yes, not sat cold-tailed on the tile of our familial washrooms, no privacy in this pairing off, because the women want to know, are we married? Do we have a house? What car we drive? The questions smell like the holiday season interrogations of our own human cities, but bear the bite of acetone. We are bashful in our 20s, having no stories to spin for them, no glossy watercolor luxury they might imagine for their own Asian children. Nothing but 2 corridor-like apartments in stacked steel complexes, student expenses, and student debt. Heels cracked like the tops of bread loaves, nail beds sheltered, wet and pale as small shivering moons. They swoon over us, so in love, as we pamper ourselves parentless, smooth our respective loneliness like tumbled stones. But I am the only one who might return home with the 2-way indigo promise of a passport in my pocket. And these are not our mothers, but even with our mothers, you and I are separated from them by degrees and upward mobility, our knots melting buttery in the camel-backed massage chairs. The woman with my big toe plucked, her temples gray where mine will be, is smiling at us, asking if I'm comfortable. I peer across at your wonder-furrowed brow, your linen trousers rolled up to the knee, how your eyes pinch like dough when the sponge swipes that spot along your ankle bone. I know, the one I coaxed out in my corridor apartment, or was it yours, as we blared our Korean soaps over the train whistles with your legs in my lap after failing to light our spent soy candles. All I know to say to her to this is yes, yes, and thank you, thank you. All right, just 2 more poems, I believe. This next one is a class favorite. It features, in Hawaii, where my parents live, we live right on the border of a state park, and it's sort of like a desert area on the south coast of Oahu. And we have some very interesting creatures, including a very particular, and I've never seen it anywhere else, a species of rats that have turned green. I don't know whether, I have a friend that has a theory that it's like a type of moss that grows on their fur, sort of similar to sloths. Could also be they've gotten into some kind of contamination. But yeah, so like a dark forest green. So this one is called the Green Rats of Leahi State Park. My coarse corpse, my green sheen. I saw one of you felled by machete and held up like a fish for size. Up the street they've tried the twine and traps, but you clean eat concrete. Cowrie teeth making mincemeat of a finger, tapping on the box lid, asking if you're still inside. Yesterday, you sneak attacked the kitchen counter and left sweetness dripping from your fur. I invent and reinvent you so many times. A spiked hooked tail nobody's seen before, a slime-bellied underside for slipping down kitchen pipes like a mossy bottle rocket, like a champagne cork bolted out with ease from pantry into reclusive gutters. No one knows what made you this way, what turned you emerald as a dew-bitten leaf, what you chew to make you the envy of every animal stalker's crosshair, every night flash Facebook spotting of your carefully camouflaged flesh. My own cousins trudge to your den each week to lay chicken scraps, prep their sleek 3-piece BB guns. Wait to see, in the crack between the fences, a dark seam of bodies heaving on, streaming through the grass. But you are like me, a psychedelic Darwinian dream, spectacularly evolved to fade effervescent into the foliage of fantasy, too used to being lured in by a delicious, lurid promise. You are like me, can tell when men want to lay you out in the drive, a pelt to marvel at. We don't come to men like that. Thank you very much. All right, the last poem, I have to end with a grandmother poem since I made that joke about being in a journal of women that write about their grandmothers. So this is for my grandmother, Emiko, and her jewelry collection. It's called My Mom Had to Teach Me Real Pearls Are Gritty in the Mouth. My grandmother, calf-legged in a kimono the color of her monthly blood, given up or whisked away, depending who you ask. Child for the starched white sheets of a businessman. Gotten out is how she tells it now, after decades of trying to put to bed her life. At her vanity, I fix the stiff clasps of her big beaded necklaces so they clink atop the cream iron letters of my Abercrombie tee, as she watches from behind, eyes steady as 2 black pebbles in the lake of the mirror. A favorite pastime of ours. I flex the yet-to-open buds of my chest while she imagines what she'll leave behind.
Gold. Gold with globes of milk or murky amber, strung cylinders of sun-blown birthright topaz, cubes of turquoise incandescence, so light the light passes through. Heavy, too, tiny orbits of dense accumulated mass of the unsayables nesting above my heart. It's all plastic, I'll later learn, though I don't know that now. For now, what's lackluster and starred burst their foreign-sounding names on my tongue like fizzing candy, or like a fuse. Gotten out, she says, because B-52s bombed the village in which she was born. The spheres fell gently and numerous like many bleached suns. Even when she conjures that iron insect of war, B-52, my gaze tills and tills her lips as I crush the pearl of word to my two front teeth. B-52, B-52. Belief, chewed, stains our tongues like abalone. Rick, will you share a poem or two?
I would be happy
Okay.
to. I mean, if you're asking.
Yes, I'll introduce you then. I mean, Georgia did a beautiful introduction, but I'll just reiterate. Our wonderful professor and mentor, Rick Hillis, is the author of Brother Salvage, which was the winner of the 2005 Agnes Lynch Starrett Prize and named a 2006 Poetry Book of the Year by Forward Magazine. He's also the author of A Map to the Lost World, which was a final for the 2012 Ohayana Book Award, and has 5 collections of poetry, including chapbooks, most recently My Roberto Clemente in 2022. His poems, translations, and essays have appeared in Harper's, Literary Imagination at Oxford, Poetry, Narrative, The Nation, The New Republic, Paris Review, Salmagundi, and the Southern Review. His honors include a Fulbright, a Whiting Writers Award, and the Amy Lowell Poetry Traveling Fellowship. He has been teaching poetry at Vanderbilt University now for 20 years. Thank
you. Hello. Hey, could we have another round of applause for these amazing poets? And if you want to stand up, it's not a forced ovation, but you might just want to stand up. No? No? Okay. I guess that's a no. That will be a no to standing. Okay. Oh my God. That was so glorious, I have to say. I'm just going to read a couple of poems because I've been asked to read just a couple, but that's okay. Hey, we have Vanderbilt representing in the back, man. That is awesome. Thank you. Yay! You braved the weather. Fantastic. What to say? In my family, there's this tradition. We call it lateness. We have a tendency to be late with things. Also, it's February. I have not given any of you a Valentine's. So, at any rate, I have a poem that's called Late Valentine. Originally, I wrote it for my poetry friend, one of my poetry moms. Now, one thing I do want to say too is I can't thank enough everyone here at Bookstore One, of course, Bryn, Elsie, thank you. Sometimes a name that you know can just fly right out of your head. And the great Georgia Court. Now, do you know in Judaism, they say that at any one moment, there are maybe at least 36 righteous people who are making the world, like, even deserve to continue. And I think there's a really good theory for Georgia being one of them. And she has this way of attracting to herself people who I think also, for whom that may be said. So I just want to, step up the appreciation to that level. This is an incredible oasis you guys have here, truly. And thanks in such a great part to the benevolence of Georgia Court. So anyway, a late Valentine for you, and for you, and for you, and for all of you, but originally for my friend Jean Valentine. And it comes with a skyhook or an epigraph that actually Jean had written on a bookmark that she gave to me. It's from the beloved Dame Emily Dickinson. And it goes like this: the sailor cannot see the north, but knows the needle can. A late Valentine. You set the needle down on a page, and the whole world trembled. The fireflies flashed in the periphery, the air singed as if from distant fires, delivering the news, the shock of recognition, new depths of love that we might come to know. That music that so enthralled you, you held it close enough for us to hear. Now we have the shells, the casings, emptied and scattered, strewn along beachfronts at the end of a terrible year. To hear you now, we must hold the whole world up to our ears. I just love that, the applause after every poem. Does it feel sometimes a little greedy? But I mean, it's just kind of wonderful, and I wish I could design a home. You could walk into a room and someone would applaud. Thank you. It's so great to be here in this room. But it is so great here to be in this room. So I am, I'm very close to finishing a book of poetry. It may need to go to night school. You don't know. We just don't know what books need. The current title is Secrets of Nature, and it gets this from a wonderful line by Thoreau, Henry David Thoreau. If you would learn the secrets of nature, you must practice more humanity. You know how many people I'd like to say that to? You too, maybe. Also, I suppose like so much of our art, maybe like the way trees grow from dark soil, there's a lot of darkness that the beauty that we make grows from. And I have this dedication to my parents who passed away last April, in unrelated circumstances, but 5 days apart. And I guess I wanted to show you this poem. This dedication kind of looks like a tree growing from a little pot. And I think I'll just read you the dedication. You who have planted these dream seeds in me, I grow these new loves out of you, for you. If I read one more, will that be okay? Maybe I could read just two more, if that's all right. Yeah. I don't want to. You never want a reading to feel like a hostage situation. Friends even had to leave at the very beginning and say, "I'm not dying now. I am not dying now." Oh man. Okay, one of the contenders for the alternate title to this book is The Listening Seed. So if you can vote later, by just saying yes or no, that would be great. It also has a skyhook from Uncle Walt Whitman. Concealed or unconcealed, the seed is waiting. The listening seed. Come, little seed, deep in the earth. Come, lean in, close enough so you can hear. You whose elders listened to Orpheus and wept a sap of bright red amber, the syrup our elders tasted of the distillation, so that what you hear, little seed, also nourishes us, even when we forget your inheritance, which is also our inheritance. I have no silver lyre, and am in an aeroplane and eager to depart as we taxi on the runway. But as our cabin shakes, lifting off, and because you are more likely to outlive us, I ask that you exhale even more of what we need to live each day. Okay. Thank you. So maybe I'll end with this. And again, thank you so much for your incredible Herculean patience. May it reward you multiply in many surprising ways throughout your day. So I guess I was mentioning that my parents had passed away, and even though of course it's a source of, it's like the worst thing that happens to you, there is this strange thing that I'm learning about it, or that they seem to keep teaching me something about. I feel their love still, and if I still am feeling that, it seems like it's being emitted from something of which I don't know exactly, but I'm here for it. I'm here to learn from it, and yeah, it does feel a little bit like there's been a tear in the lining of things, but in a beautiful way. So anyway, this poem, so I've been writing these poems. I have this little sequence, this is only one of several poems that I'm calling At the Edge of the Perceivable Spectrum. My Aunt Betsy features prominently in this, and sometimes we call her Bets. I kind of love it when names become verbs. Betsy Bets. But yes, this is At the End of the Perceivable Spectrum, and thank you again all so much for not just coming, but for staying too, and I hope people will applaud you when you enter rooms. We should ask for this. All right. Aunt Betsy's 3 Australian shepherds, Lexi, Katie, Indy, keep circling my hands, threading my bare legs like shaggy atoms, colliding with me in tenderness. And in this way, they weave the energies between us into new synaptic constellations, the molecules of my universe already vibrating into new affinities. And so much passes between us without a sound that I can hear. And before I know it, the dogs are leaping to lick at my face. How does this happen? A kinship so quick and deep and more hardening than often occurs among our troubled species. And they do not make small talk or complain or size me up. I'm even needing to do this with glasses on. Or size me up to see how I might be made to lose money in their direction. Nor do they drone on about God and how I'm going to hell if I don't believe in exactly the same way they believe. They do not judge me at all, not that I can tell, which is not to say that they are not discerning. All 3 barnyard dogs seem to keep sampling the weather brewing in me with their mouths. But beyond liking the taste of sweat and salty skin, what do you suppose their attention tells them? Do they go on like wine snobs about how we taste? How some of us exude notes of cherry vanilla, others adagios of tobacco and stale cola. Yum. Whatever such tastings mean to them, at least they keep me reaching for my better nature. And what dogs breathe in through their wheezy rhinaria, that's the part, is so beyond me that I can only sense the merest gossip of its enormity in their presence. And didn't Nietzsche dream of someday writing a philosophy based not on the eyes or ears, but on a well-honed nose, to be written presumably by himself, with help from his dog of 2 names, ego and pain. But even if someone realizes his dream, we will still have to rely a bit longer on our imaginations. When Bets leads us to the barn to introduce us, my brother and me, to her 2 horses, Splash, a black and white Tabiano mare, trots out of the barn at once into the bright pasture to elude us as we approach, while Sunny, the sorrel gelding, receives our eagerness reluctantly, letting us pet him only after Bets shows him we can be trusted at least this much. It's hard not to feel rejected when any living thing, cat, dog, horse, grouse, even a house sparrow, sees you once and flies away. And so I delight in this time among these creatures, especially those so close to my twice-widowed animal whisperer, Aunt Betsy, who reveals even more of her sweetness and ease in their company, until I feel my own cells at the molecular level spiraling inside me, our infinities colliding as we walk side by side. Thank you all so much.
I want to thank you all for coming. And, we're kind of short on time, but if there are one or two questions for our poets, we could take that.
Like about spearfishing.
Yeah, right, yeah.
It's not mandatory.
No, it's not mandatory, so thank you for coming.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.